For FingerLakes1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is Inside the FLX. Our program today begins with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, which was held earlier in the month. The Edith B. Memorial Library in Ovid, New York, celebrated a multi-million-dollar expansion, which was crucial for a whole lot of reasons. We have discussed on this program at length how libraries serve as the lifeblood of many small communities in the Finger Lakes, and the locally known Ovid Library is no exception. My guest this hour, Shannon O'Connor, Edith B. Memorial Library Director, and Luke Hodde, the library's IT specialist. We're going to talk about the expansion, get into some of the exciting work that the library has been doing to connect residents who might not have access to computers or high-speed internet, and a bunch of other stuff too, programs, etc. Thank you both for coming in today.
Oh, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
So, Shannon, I want to start with the expansion because this is the news. This is the thing that you guys have been working on for years and years, and it must feel incredible to now really be in a place where you guys can kick things into high gear this summer.
Oh, yes. I mean, because we had run out of physical space for what our potential was before. So now with the expanded library, I mean, we just had a youth in there this morning on our way out who has been a library kid for 10 years, and he walked in today and was just so excited with all the spaces that are in there.
Is the wow factor the thing that you guys have noticed the most for the people who were used to what it was before to what it is now?
Oh, definitely. And there's also, we were limited to one room for the past year. So people were used to a very small, condensed library. So to have all this space now, not only the wow factor, but people are pretty excited by the spaces that have been created. So now we have, a public art center in the Forge. And so people are coming in and asking to teach classes for other community members. So woodworking, sewing, painting.
And Luke, I just want to get your perspective. Having seen the project come and go now, what are you feeling versus obviously Shannon, who's sort of intricate into the process as more of a casual outsider who's also there every day and seeing this? What's it feel like?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been at the library a much shorter amount of time, only about 2 years. So I saw the library for a brief window before, a whole lot of time during, and then now this brief window after. And so it's such a transformation. And it's been really interesting and really cool for staff because, we're all clumped up in a very, very small space for a while. Yeah. We really got to know each other quite well. Yeah. And then now we've sort of expanded out into our various areas, working with more people, which is awesome. But we kind of miss being so close together, which is funny.
I am sure that you miss being the closeness, but I am sure that you guys are also super stoked about having that space. For those who might not be caught up or up to speed in terms of what that process looked like, Shannon, just how long did it take, and what was that part of it like, living it every single day, sort of almost like living in a war zone, a construction zone, for two full years, right?
Nope, just one.
One year. Yeah. So the planning process was before that, and then the construction started. What was that process like for you?
Right, because this has been a 5-year process.
Right.
Because we started 5 years ago with identifying the need for some construction work that had to be done on the library, and the amount of work that was going to entail. It was, now is the time to expand to meet the needs of the community. Now's the time to do it. So it was many years of architectural planning, fundraising, and then for the year of actual construction, we didn't have indoor plumbing, we didn't have a restroom, we were using the porta potty when it was snowing. So that was tough, and not a lot of people were coming in and using the library. It was the real diehards because it was limited. Families couldn't come in, and then they couldn't have a restroom to use, so that wasn't so helpful. And it wasn't handicap accessible at that time either.
Right. So now where do we stand? What are all of I want to hear the full menu of amenities that you guys are able to sort of provide now in the space compared to what you were able to before. So walk us through a little bit of what those changes look like.
Well, the original building is a 1961 mid-century modern architectural building that had 2 floors, a top level, which was a collection up there, and a bottom level that was originally designed as a community room, and that's how we used it. But there's also part of the collection down there. So if you had a meeting or a class, you were downstairs of the basement, people would be walking down and getting books. It created an odd flow of people. Yeah. But now what we have is we have a gigantic youth room, and that's where Luke works out of. So now we've pulled the teens out of the library and they have a space to go, which now creates a very quiet atmosphere in the original building. So we have quiet adult reading areas that people are very happy to have now, because we are known as quite a noisy library, but not anymore. And then downstairs we created an archival suite. So we have a local history room that people can go in and utilize, and then we have archival room where we're containing all of our one-of-a-kind items, like our Willard scrapbook, and we have old photos and yearbooks that are in that room. And now we also have a set classroom, and then we have the Forge, the community arts center.
So to that end, you honed in on something that I think is pretty important to sort of talk about and highlight here. You're serving a pretty diverse audience, and this project and this expansion leverages your guys' ability to work on that and to make sure that you are able to serve all of these individual communities, right? So the older folks who want to use it for, say, a quiet reading space, or just want to do some research, or the teens who are there sort of socializing as well as using it as a learning space.
Correct. I mean, because we provide educational resources, recreational resources, and we're also a social networking. I mean, this is where people come to get their social interaction a lot of times with us or with their friends. So yes, we have quiet spaces, we have noisier spaces. We even created a toddler play space in the lower level in the community room, and families have already been using it. They get to come in, they can use Wi-Fi, they can get work done, but their kids have a whole area to play in.
When you talk to other folks who might work in libraries or lead libraries like you do, what do you tell them in terms of being sort of that epicenter? Because I know I've been to a lot of other libraries, and even in some heavily populated places, they aren't nearly the community center that like the Ovid Library is, as an example. So what do you sort of tell those folks who might be trying to capture a little bit of that and bring that to life in their own library?
Well, I mean, part of it is because I live in the community, I'm raising kids in the community, so I want to feel that social connection and have connection to people and to build a network. But you also need the staffing. I mean, the staffing is the key to do this. I mean, we have a diverse staff. I mean, we have an IT specialist, so we're doing technology things that most other libraries are not doing.
Yeah.
We have an archivist who's working in that local history room, a librarian. And to do this, I mean, it requires a lot of grant writing as well to get the programming in there, and that also helps pay for the staff members.
Go ahead, pat yourself on the back and talk a little bit about that, because I think that is super interesting. People don't see that. They don't see that part of the effort that goes into it, the members who are basically working day in and day out to make sure that the staff and that everybody who is there leading the charge can keep doing it. How much, to give a little bit of perspective, what would you say percentage-wise of your year is sort of dedicated, if you're sort of quantifying it, to having to make sure that all of your X's and O's are in line so that the Lukes of the library can continue being the Lukes of the library?
Oh, it's probably a quarter of my job is just grant-focused. And it's not just me. I mean, I can help identify grants, help write the grants, but the staff also have been helping with the grant writing and reporting. And so that makes a difference too. And they know that their job's contingent upon this, so we all jump in and do it. We recently, when we did that IMLS grant to do a local history project, I mean, that took staff. I mean, that was 2 weeks of our life that we dedicated 50, 60-hour weeks, each of us, to get that done.
And to that end, Luke, you don't stop doing the things that you're doing every day in that time or in that process. You're continuing, right?
Yeah, actually, the job is a lot more diverse and has a lot more going on every day than I thought when I started. Because we're looking for new grants, we're grant writing, we're working on all these different specialized projects according to our own skill sets, and we're just being librarians, and we're being stewards of the community. So all at once. So
now I want to focus a little bit on what's coming up now that you guys have this great new space. You have all this extra real estate down there. What are some of the things that you guys have coming up, Shannon, say in the next 30 to 60 days as kids start to wrap up school here?
Well, we're going back to a lot of our arts programming. Tonight we kick off our first talk, which is Fishing in the Finger Lakes with Case Staple from 6:30 to 7:30. We have a lot of art classes coming up, family plein air painting, book plate making, but then we also have a lot of kids' summer camps. So we have a 2-week kid film lab camp for youth. We have a cooking camp. We have a comic creation camp. We like to get the kids in the library from 10 to 1 for these programs. Parents can drop off at 9, pick up at 2. The kids can be there for a good chunk of the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then for littler kids, we have summer reading programs on Wednesday mornings through all of July. We'll keep everyone busy. Oh, and then we also started a whole slew of weekly clubs.
Okay.
So we have our Dungeons and Dragons club, the Knit and Chat for older people. We have a couple new book clubs coming up, our sci-fi book club, our YA book club.
Safe to say there's something for everybody, and there's almost always something going on, right?
There is. And then the fourth Saturday of each month, we're starting an adult game night. That'll run from 6 to 11 p.m. So a time when people would want to go out, and there's video games, board games. We're kind of setting up like a cafe in the library.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit IT. Let's talk technical.
Sure.
What is the Edith B. Ford Memorial Library doing that maybe some other libraries aren't doing? And then also, what does the programming on the technical side look like in terms of not just for you guys who are working there, but for the community members who are coming in and taking advantage?
Absolutely. So we do have high-speed internet, which is something that I feel like a lot of people take for granted, but around here it's not so common. So that's something that people will just come in and use our internet to check their email, catch up on YouTube, all kinds of things that they would just rather do here than do at home. We also have a lot of computers available and a great variety of different machines for different purposes available too. So we have our standard patron PCs that you can just come and use whenever you want. We also have a mobile tech lab now, which is for higher end laptops that are for production software, like your Adobe suite and 3D modeling, game design, gaming, which is what we're using for our gaming programs as well. So they're just sort of our multi-use. And almost nobody in this area has access to that kind of equipment and hardware. In terms of also other equipment, like we have a graphics tablet for the kids who want to get into digital painting or graphic design, but don't have the funding or the resources for that kind of thing. Going along that line, our programs are kind of going the same way, where we want to be able to provide access to learning skills that otherwise there's absolutely no way that you could get started on your own with no resources. And we feel like tech literacy, tech education is really important in this area.
And it seems like we're starting to see a focus on that in the K through 12 environment. But really what it seems like you guys are doing, Shannon, is building on that and then also filling some of the gaps that aren't quite being met yet, right?
Well, correct. And also because we have someone like Luke on staff who can actually instruct people, we can work with smaller groups. So there can just be 2 or 4 adults who want to learn a particular software, and then we can just schedule a class around that or just a drop-in 1-hour session with them to get them started.
And to that end, I think we talked a little bit about it the last time you were here. What do you guys see in terms of the greatest need in terms of bridging that gap between those who don't quite understand all the technology they probably need to understand as they're moving into the modern world versus where they need to be? And how do you guys sort of bridge that gap? I guess it would be fair to start with you, Luke, on this one.
I think the greatest gap there is really equipment and resources. I think a lot of these people, especially kids, adults, everyone, they have the natural talent, they have the interest and the knack for it and the passion and the drive, to get it done. They just don't have access to the resources and equipment, and that's really what we want to be able to provide.
Yep, agreed. I think the access to the equipment and the software that is so expensive is absolutely necessary.
So obviously on the tech side, you might have hit a couple of them, but what kinds of, I'm sure a lot of the folks who might be listening, I know we have some audience members who aren't that in tune with tech, and maybe some of them are thinking to themselves, I have these issues with various pieces of technology. I know some libraries have started doing these basically tutorial sessions. Is that something that you guys have actually started to dabble in terms of programming for not just young people to get them ready for the modern world, but also for some older folks who maybe don't quite understand how to get their smartphone working or something to that effect?
Oh, those are constant every day. And what we've done is we're trying to channel people into the Ford Library on Fridays. So from Fridays from 9 to 5, you can book a librarian for an hour. And because all staff members are there on Fridays, and so you can have any level of expertise. I could sit down and help you download ebooks, but Luke can help you update your phone. Or Rebecca can help you print.
Yeah.
So, Luke, expand on that a little bit. Just as you sort of see it over and over again, obviously our generation and generations behind us, they're living it every day.
Absolutely.
But that isn't the case for everybody. Is that ever kind of a little bit surprising, I guess, in some ways that, there is such a gap with technology that's so prevalent and so common out beyond sort of the small neck of the woods?
Absolutely. So, we have people come in, like Shannon said, every day, with all kinds of different issues from, I can't sign into my email, or I don't know how to get to Google, all the way up to like, can you help me format my hard drive, and so, there is, what I'm noticing a lot of is there's a lot of enthusiasm for learning, especially even in the much older generation. I'm noticing there's a lot of like, I want to learn how to use this tool. It's rather than, this stupid phone won't work, and so I really love like helping people because there is, there's a lot of enthusiasm for learning, and I love to teach people. So, and that's actually how I got started at this job. I was just teaching tech classes on, just all kinds of different. I taught a Photoshop class a couple of times, and then they asked me to come on.
It's interesting that you mentioned that particular you say that particular thing about smartphones, because one of the things that we have seen, or I have seen personally, is sort of that tolerance level for the amount of work that some people are willing to put into understanding something before they just give up on it. And having that resource is almost like you guys in some ways are the last line of defense between that person keeping their smartphone and throwing it in a lake and going back to a flip phone or a basic phone.
Yeah, sometimes.
That has got to feel pretty good. It has to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love my job. I love what we do. Yeah.
So, all right, let's switch gears a little more. The access side of it. We've talked some about that. Broadband access, that's something that, Shannon, the last time you were on, we talked about. Where do we stand now? What would you like to see be part of the next step as you guys continue to enhance what you're doing? How do you want to see the community around you guys advance with what you're doing?
Well, hopefully the people that are coming into the library to use the high-speed internet are realizing that this should be in our homes as well. I mean, I don't have high-speed internet at my house.
Right.
So we're hoping that people, as they get more comfortable with technology and want to use it more, then they can be more of the pushback to, hey, let's make sure that this is available in our community, because it's limiting employment growth in our area, because businesses don't want to come in if they don't have access to internet, as well as limiting people who are trying to work out of their homes. So hopefully we can push in that direction.
And Luke, as the young person in the room, what's your pitch? What is the pitch to other young people who are thinking to themselves, Ovid, New York? Really?
Libraries?
We're trying.
What?
Yeah.
No. So what's the pitch to those people who, it might be Bloomfield, it might be Galen, it might be, pick your small community here in the Finger Lakes.
Yeah.
But what's your pitch to that person who maybe they're on the fence, or maybe they're way away from the fence? What's the pitch?
I would say the pitch is, this is almost like a frontier. Like, you're out here and you can build something for yourself, and you can learn new skills, and you can carve out a market niche that maybe if you were in a big city, is completely covered. But if you were a graphic designer in Ovid, that's a much smaller pool of people. Yeah. You might be, one of 2 or 3, people with your specific skill set in this area, versus being in a big city where there are thousands and thousands of people just as qualified as you. And I think there's also something to be said for the small town community, and getting to know everybody. I feel like I know everybody in town and really well, and I like everyone, and I have a relationship with all kinds of people just because they come in every day to the library.
And Shannon, obviously, community crucial to what you guys are doing. Pump up that community a little bit, because obviously they are a big reason why you guys are able to keep doing what you're doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, when you have more of a social network within a community, you have better mental health, people are happier, more things get done, people work together. So, yeah.
And then my last question here, how can folks get involved? Obviously, stopping in is one thing, but for the people who want to help you guys with what you're doing, with the mission, what's the call to action for those folks who are interested and want to do it?
Well, first off, there's levels of helping, coming in and volunteering. That's a big thing. And just be aware, we're a little backlogged right now getting back to people as far as setting up classes, just because we're just getting started. But with this whole capital campaign project, we are still about $100,000 short of our goal. So we are still accepting donations to make sure that we can see this through to completion.
And how can they make a donation? I want people to go do it right now.
Online, ovidlibrary.org, donate button right on the homepage, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. And then what is the, it's a long summer, especially if you have kids. So what, as we sit here and say, it's May right now, and I would imagine programs fill up, and it's not always possible to get in last minute. It's probably a good idea to plan a little bit, think a few weeks out ahead. Is that a good idea? How should they be keeping tabs on what's going on so that they can get in and they're not, unfortunately left out?
Yep. ovidlibrary.org calendar of events is right on there. Definitely want to apply for any of the youth summer camps. There's no charge for them. They're by donation only. But they do fill up. There is finite space to have a group of kids cooking for a week. So, yeah, they need to do that now.
And my last question for both of you, one thing that makes you optimistic, not just about what you guys are doing in the Ovid Library, but what is happening in communities like Ovid, where libraries are serving as this sort of mecca of activity.
Well, I have to say this expansion project right towards the tail end really brought a lot more people into our library, because we had to ask all these people that we've never asked before to come in and volunteer and help us. And the end result has been just a stronger community within the library. Not only between staff, but also all the volunteers we kind of sucked in.
The volunteers and just people who come in regularly and help us out. Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, I appreciate the time, guys. Obviously, best of luck with everything you're doing. And if you're listening to this right now, go to the Ovid Library website and donate. Help them get to that $100,000 mark, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.